I've been talking for the last 7 or 8 minutes without having pressed record on the camera, so that is an excellent start to this video. Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today's video I want to talk to you about the part of goal setting that I feel like isn't really talked about, which is how to actually do the work. Specifically creating an action plan to actually achieve your goals and how to overcome procrastination that inevitably gets in the way of achieving our goals. If you're following along with the mid-year reset, so far we've created a vision for the future, set some short-term goals to get us closer to our future, and now I'm going to be walking you through how to create a 12-week plan for actually achieving those goals. The last part to this, which will be coming soon, is around the sort of weekly progress on those goals. The task management system that I'm going to be talking about in today's video is based on David Allen's book Getting Things Done, which has been largely responsible for me kicking my really bad procrastination habit and also diminishing a lot of the feelings of anxiety that I had before. According to David Allen, anything that you want to change is work. Even if your goals are not work related, it's important that you treat them the same way that you would treat work related goals, and we're going to be handling all of our tasks and projects in the same way that we would treat a work project. I'm basically going to be summarizing the book Getting Things Done in a decent amount of detail because that is required to really get a handle of how to actually practically implement the Getting Things Done system. I'm going to be showing you how that looks in my own Notion. My Notion template is linked below. The first part of the Getting Things Done process is capturing. So you want to capture absolutely everything that has your attention. So even before thinking about what steps we need to do for our goals, it's a really good idea to get everything out of your head that might already have your attention. So all of your current commitments, all of the things you actually already need to do before adding anything new. I recommend doing this first because it really allows you to free up your mind and then allow you to really push on your goals. You can absolutely work on both at the same time, but the main thing is that you don't want, as you're working on your goals, to be bombarded with the thoughts of working on other things. So this will just allow you to manage your tasks in a way that you can get them off your mind. On Spotify, the Getting Things Done podcast has an episode called A Guided Mind Sweep, which is a really good way to just get all of the things off your mind that you might be thinking about with regards to different tasks. I definitely recommend doing that before getting started with the next step. So now we want to capture what all of the information that we need to do with regards to our actual goals are. So I usually just do a brainstorm for each of the goals that I've set out because these are usually a bigger goal and we have lots of things that we need to do to actually work on that goal. And they're going to very much depend on what type of goal it is, whether it's more of an output focused goal or if it's more of a process focused goal. So for example, one of the goals I have is to set up with the business that I have, which is a drama school, for autumn courses. So set up for our new term of courses. Just a brief brainstorm. It doesn't have to make sense to start off. Just get down some ideas for what those might be. So I'll give the list here. Website update, parent communication, teacher communication, end of term performance, midterm course, class plans, publicising, scheduling, venue confirmation, theatre trip. That list probably means absolutely nothing to you. However, it does mean something to me. And we will go on in the next step to actually organise these a bit better, but for the moment it's okay to just start with these sort of loose phrases. You can see that one of my goals as well is healthy morning and evening routine, and within that what I have is 11,000 steps a day, workout, yoga or stretching, flossing. With, for example, a paper that I'm working on for my PhD, I have meet my supervisor, modelling, organise results, write up. The next step then is to clarify. So we're going to clarify what we mean by all of these messy phrases we've written down with regards to our tasks. One thing that really contributes to procrastination is not having the task you're meant to do properly defined, and it's said that a problem well defined is a problem half solved. I can't tell you how many times I've looked at my list of things to do where it did just look like that, what I just showed you, and I've just felt so much dread and immediately just shut it down because I just didn't want to do whatever it was that was on the list because I don't really know what it is that I have to do there. Once I've started properly clarifying the tasks, writing down what is the actual action step here, the dread, the desire to procrastinate has gone way, way down. So just turning something into what is the actual next action step I need to do makes it a lot less scary, a lot less unknown, and a lot easier to complete. We're halfway there basically because we know what it is we're actually meant to do. So in terms of clarifying, the first thing we want to see is this a task or is it a habit? So a habit will be something that we repeat on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, whereas a task is just sort of one and done. And there might be some that are a combination, but let's just say, for example, the healthy morning and evening routine, 11,000 steps a day, that is a habit. Is there any action step that I need to do that is going to prevent me right now from going and doing 11,000 steps a day? No. Great. So that can just go onto my habits list, and I have a sort of database where I keep track of my daily habits that I need to do, and I can just check that off. If we look at something like workout, let's say, for example, and I use this example a lot, let's say I'm planning to work out at the gym 3 times a week. So that's the more defined habit than just workout. Let's say I haven't gotten a gym membership yet. There's something actively preventing me from working out at the gym 3 times a week because I don't have a gym membership. I need to add a task, which is get a gym membership, first of all, before I can actually do this habit. So I should still add this habit to my habits list. However, there will be a task that I need to put in that needs to be done ASAP because I can't move on with the next part until I do. For example, I have on my social media goals, I want to post 2 videos a week for this YouTube channel. I can't just post that video because I haven't made that video, and I can't just make that video because I don't know what video that would be. So the first step for that will be planning my content, and then there'll be a project that goes on from there for each individual video, which will be scripting the video, filming the video, editing the video, adding any overlays, whatever that might be, uploading the video, doing the thumbnail, doing all the description stuff, blah, 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 posting the video, publicizing the video on social media, blah, 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 blah. So that's just not a simple thing I can put on my habits list and say post twice a week. I can look at that habit list. I can't just go and do that. It's a much bigger thing than just going and walking 10,000 steps or whatever it is, or just going to the gym. There's not like a process within that you need to do, if that makes sense. So yes, those are habits, and I still want to track those. I still want to track, am I posting twice a week? However, I do need to also include that in my actual to-do list and my tasks and actions. So figuring out what is a habit and putting any of those habits onto your habit tracker, and then figuring out, are there any action steps associated with those habits that you need to add back into the actions. The next thing you need to clarify is it a single step process or is it a multi-step process? If it is a single step process, then you want to just clarify what is the actual action associated with whatever it is you've written down. So for example, you can see that one of the things I have written down is venue confirmation, and this can be translated into email the venue confirming the day and time for classes. Now, venue confirmation is something that I would see on that list and just think, oh, I really don't want to do that. I just don't want to do it. And that's where the procrastination comes in big time. Whereas if I see email venue confirming day and time for classes, I think that sounds pretty easy, probably take me 2 minutes. I can easily cross this off my list. It sounds like so silly because it's the same thing. In the back of my mind, I know what I have to do when I see that venue confirmation, but putting it into words makes a huge difference. I think you've no idea until you start doing this properly. And if you're unsure if you've described something with an action or not, it should contain a verb. So what is the actual thing you need to do? So even just 11,000 steps, I need to change that to walk 11,000 steps. It just makes things more clear, and it just makes that it a little bit easier to do. So if it's a multi-step process, then it'll be a project. The handling of it is very similar, but basically you want to just also keep a list of your projects that you're working on so that you can keep an eye on how they're progressing. So you'll have your task list and then your projects list, and those tasks will be related to projects or they won't. It's just so you can basically have a sense of how the project progresses on the whole. Pretty much you just want to be looking at what is the next action for that project. You can do a bit of project planning, so if there's multiple steps that you know will be involved, I usually within Notion, I'll open up the page and I'll put in extra tasks as just a list. If there's any that I can do right now, then they go into the next actions, which is my task list. However, if they can't be done until one of those other things are done, then I'll just leave them in there until that time, and I'll every once in a while just go in and look over those. So for example, you'll see that I brainstormed for the paper that I'm working on and the ebook some tasks, but a lot of those can't be done until I do the first task. The idea with this is you don't want to have a bunch of tasks on your to-do list that you can't do. Other than that, everything else works the same. So each of those tasks you still want to clarify completely and define those, And for all of the habits, tasks, all of these here, you want to fully define them so that you know exactly what is meant by each of those, what the actual action is. Once you've clarified all of those tasks, the next step is to determine if that task can be done in under 2 minutes, in which case, do it. If you have 100 tasks on that list that are only 2 minutes in length, that'll take you about 3.5 hours. It's very worthwhile to just spend that 3.5 hours doing 100 things and getting 100 things off your list that you could just get out of the way without ever having to think about them again. This rule alone has been definitely transformative for how I approach just quick tasks that are reasonably painless if they're handled quickly, but become a source of unnecessary anguish if you leave them. And that's just the general thing that happens with procrastination. The longer you leave it, the more uncomfortable you get, which means you actually are forced to do something. But if you just do something, none of that discomfort has to happen. If it'll take longer than 2 minutes, you could delegate it, in which case you will move that, once you've delegated, onto a waiting list so that you can just keep an eye on it. So there's not much point in delegating something that takes less than 2 minutes, because usually the delegation of it alone might take 2 minutes. So if it's longer than 2 minutes though, it probably is worth your time to delegate it. So you give it to someone else to do, and then you keep an eye on it on the waiting for list. And the reason for having a separate list is you don't want that in your task list plaguing you when you know it's not something that you need to do, but you do want to have somewhere to keep an eye on it so that you can check back with that person to make sure they've actually done whatever it is. Alternatively, you will defer it onto our next actions list, which I've sort of been talking about, which is basically just a list of all of the things that we need to do as soon as possible. Once you have this all set up, it becomes, easier and easier to do. Basically, in the initial stage, it takes a lot longer because you'll have all these 2-minute tasks that you haven't done. But as you're following the process, basically, you don't add these 2-minute tasks to your list at all. You just do them. And then it means that you don't have to process them and organize them and all of this. Whereas you should just be processing and organizing things that take longer than 2 minutes. At this point, this is where everyone says, oh my god, that's overwhelming. I could never look at that. It would be way too overwhelming, blah, 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 blah. But I'm not done yet. Just stick with it. I promise it'll get better. And I promise it really does help, especially if you're the kind of person who gets distracted easily, because I definitely do suffer from that. This has really helped me. The next step is organizing. So that involves giving each of your tasks a context in which the task can take place. So for example, that can be email, phone call, at your desk, at home, errand, agenda, and you can even get very specific with these. So agendas for specific people, so you could have an agenda for discussing with your supervisor or your manager or your partner, your housemate, whoever that is. And the reason that you do this is that you have all of these individual lists, and you can have these in physical form, or what I like to do is having everything in Notion. You can just filter through whatever context you're in. So for example, if I'm sitting at my desk, I look at my task list, I want to only see the tasks that I'm doing in that context. I don't want to see the tasks that are related to questions I need to ask my supervisor or my partner when I'm at my desk trying to program and they're not around. I want to keep them in mind for the next time I'm talking to them, and then that means I'll know to review that list before the next time I talk to them. But we don't want to be distracting ourselves from the work that we're doing. Switching contexts, which would be going back and forth between lots of different types of tasks, is very, very draining on our focus, and it just means that it's harder to get things done if you are moving between different focuses all the time. So if you can just bash out a lot of similar tasks in one given context, it really helps us stay in the zone. For example, phone calls for me would be very anxiety provoking, so it's better for me to just get through a load of them, because the mental preparedness I need to make a phone call, once I've done one, I might as well just keep going, because otherwise it means I've got that mental preparedness multiple times throughout the week that takes up more time. Other ways that you can and should organize your task list is add a due date if there is something that actually it has to be due for that date. Otherwise, don't put a label on it, because it can be very disconcerting to give yourself a daily to-do list and then not get that stuff done and then have to push it to the next day and the next day and the next day. Whereas if you just have a list of things that they need to be done as soon as possible, it gives you a little bit more urgency with the list on the whole. And I sort of find that it helps me to have a broader sense and not be feeling guilty on a given day if I don't get something done, unless I actually had to get it done that day. You can also add priority levels, so high, middle, low priority, the time required, the energy required, and these help to know if you're in a context in a given moment, given the amount of time you have, the amount of energy you have, what is the best thing I could work on right now? So you can literally just filter through and say, okay, I've got 20 minutes, I'm sitting in my car, I feel pretty good in terms of energy, I want to get something important done. There you go, find your task. I also listened to an episode of the Getting Things Done podcast where somebody organised their tasks by emotional context. So what was the emotional outcome of doing that task, which I think is actually a good thing to add as well. There'll be a lot of tasks that I can just look at and think, I will feel amazing if I do this in whatever way. So it could be very much getting rid of overwhelming feelings or whatever, but sometimes it is just good to think about your emotions in these settings. The next step is reflecting. After we've organised all of these tasks, it's important that we keep our lists up to date, and it's really important that you've built a system that you actually trust to manage your tasks. So like when you go into that, you know that's where all your tasks are, and your brain knows, okay, I'm comfortable that she's going to be checking that every once in a while. She's going to get those tasks done. Whereas if your brain doesn't trust that you're going to look in that list, it'll start to give you all those annoying reminders again, being like, don't forget to do this and don't forget to do that, which can be very distracting and very stress inducing. So even reviewing your tasks every day can be a good daily habit to track, because I know the first time I did it, I did all the mind sweep and I felt great after just doing the mind sweep, and then I didn't do the rest of the steps, didn't go back and actually, sort out a lot of the tasks, and then I didn't do a lot of the tasks. But over the last year and a half that I've been implementing this system, I've gotten much better at it. Last step is engaging, which is actually doing the tasks. Very important. Great, we've organized all of our tasks. Now how do we actually do them? A lot of people think that they can just wait for motivation to strike when it comes to work, but it's actually been shown that the people who work are more motivated and not the other way around. So if you want to feel good, do the work. I can tell you very wholeheartedly, very truthfully, that I now get immense satisfaction from deleting tasks off that list whenever they're done and trying to get that list as low as I possibly can, compared to all of this stuff that used to build up and just live inside my head that used to make me feel awful all the time. I now feel like, first of all, I'm working on such a higher efficiency, but I also just feel really good. And it means that when I go and do other things that aren't work related, I can feel really good, really comfortable knowing that this is exactly where I need to be. Everything else is being handled. I'm going to get to the tasks when I get to them. There's nothing, immensely urgent that's going to be coming into my head and telling me you shouldn't be out for dinner. You should be back in the office doing work. You can even try and gamify it, giving yourself a reward if you get 10 tasks done. We can also use 3 prompts from Tim Ferris to help decide what to do. So what on the list would make everything else easier if done? What of these things would I fight for the chance to do if it was taken away from me? And what 20% of tasks would drive 80% of the results? So that's the Pareto principle, and that's just what is high impact here. The other thing with regards to engaging and actually doing the things is going to be effectively scheduling time to work on your tasks. We don't want to be giving ourselves a daily to-do list of stuff we have to get done that day when we don't have to get it done that day. When I'm scheduling my week, I usually start off with the non-negotiables. So if you have a work schedule that, is outside of your goals, that needs to be put in. If you have meetings, appointments, these all have to go in first. Then you want to add around 3 or 4 hour blocks of deep work, which is uninterrupted, really focused work. And yes, this might mean some early mornings, late evenings, whatever, to work on your goals. That is life. But this time should be for the very sort of focused, heavy lifting. For example, writing my ebook, creating content, working on a research paper, filming video, stuff that has to be really, really focused and that you need a good amount of time to work on. A lot of the deep work tasks take several blocks. So for example, the modeling for the research paper I'm working on, I don't know how many deep work sessions that's going to take, but I say I want to work maybe 5 deep work sessions a week for PhD work. So that means that I need to just think about that as I'm going through the week. You then want to add in 1 or 2 hours a day as needed for shallow work, which will be the more administrative, smaller tasks. These will probably be a lot of your 2-minute tasks. A lot of the tasks on your to-do list will end up being those kind of administrative tasks, or it could be things that just crop up throughout the day. These just allow you to sort of batch together a lot of these tasks in a short period. It might also be helpful to organize your tasks into whether they are deep or shallow work, and this will help with an additional context to know, okay, I'm in my deep work block, what deep work tasks can I get done? Lastly, you want to add in time for your routines, so recreation, pleasure time. In the 12-week year goal setting system, It's advised you have around 3 hours breakup block during the regular work hours to give yourself a break for some recovery. So we definitely recommend doing that. That is it for this video. It's a long one. It's a necessarily long one, I think. I don't know how I could have cut this down. It's basically summarizing a whole book. Here you go. Thank you so much for watching. If you got to this point in the video, at least subscribe, you know, at least do that. If you're feeling generous, throw me a thumbs up, throw me a comment down below. Thanks to all of my wonderful members, and I'll see you all in the next video.